So on today's episode of
We'll name this later.
we'll
That's
name
what,
yeah um
that's what I've been calling it.
yeah we got Jerome Hansen with Hansen Realty and me Zach with Edge Home Finance. And today we are going to be talking about a few different things. Really, how buyers are able to negotiate and still have some leverage in today's market, how rate drops are going to impact buyers, and then why you shouldn't waive your inspection when rates do come down and things do get competitive. Again, this is just a brief little overview of what we're going to be diving into today. But Mr. Jerome, how you
Yep.
doing?
Not bad. Not bad. I will say that overall, you know, I don't like the fact that rates are still kind of inching upwards. You know what I'm saying? In our business, that doesn't help too much, right?
Right.
So I'm seeing buyers come into my open houses with droopy faces and stuff. They're looking they're looking in there and they're like, "Oh man, if it wasn't so high priced, or if rates weren't so high, or if this extra fee wasn't added on, the high rate just adds on to the misery, man." Where are we
Yep.
looking at right now? Have you checked today? Where are we at?
Today, it really depends on the buyer. For VA, I'm seeing about six and a quarter to 6.75. Just depends. That's with no points. And then I'm seeing up to, if somebody has a little bit worse credit, they're going to be sitting in the sevens for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, FHA is going to follow pretty much VA on that one. And then conventional has definitely gotten higher. The national average, I know for that, has been over 7%. Uh,
Yeah.
the past few weeks. So we are hoping moving into this new market in March, the new CPI report coming out, that hopefully things get a little bit better. But, devil's advocate,
Yeah.
things have definitely been better since October when rates were just, I mean, like 8% conventional almost, 7.5 across the board for VA. Didn't matter what your credit was. So things retrospectively have gotten better. It's just, things get worse before they get better.
100%. And you know what? I don't like to call myself a pessimist anymore. I used to, until I started meeting guys like you that said, "Well, no, you're not a pessimist, you're a realist." And you're right. You know what I mean? So my realist point of view is just don't prepare for anything different. Prepare for what you currently see. And what we are seeing is, the 7% and above interest rates. And, if you're VA and FHA, maybe you're looking at a six handle, right? So just prepare for the seven and above and make this the new normal, right? If this is the new normal, then what do you have to do to prepare for that? Matter of fact, real quick story. I did an open house yesterday on my house in Peyton, and a young couple walked in, and they impressed me so much simply because of the fact that they were preparing, right? Not only were they, we had the conversation, and not only had they started preparing for these high interest rates and what that looked like, they started getting their financial house in order. But then I found out later on that they were actually from out in, I believe it was Baltimore, right? So they took the time to fly out here to Colorado Springs, right? And start checking around to the neighborhoods that they think they would be most interested in.
Mhm.
They looked into some open houses to kind of gauge what their affordability would allow them in this city, right? And they wanted to speak with some real estate professionals. So that level of preparation, in my opinion, is what it's going to take, right? You have to prepare for what you see in the market right now, and don't think that things are just going to get better and that you need to wait for it. If you prepare correctly, you'll be fine.
Right. And let's think about that because they were able to fly out and actually view homes in person, get a feel for the area. And this is kind of part of that leverage that buyers have right now, right? And it's crazy to think about. Yeah, you should be able to go out and scope out an area. But a few years ago, you were having to show homes through FaceTime, I'm sure, because
Yeah.
people couldn't, you,
Yeah.
if you went and showed them a house and they were flying out here, that house is under contract and gone within
Yeah.
24 hours. So this goes back to another leverage piece that buyers actually do have right now. They can take the time. They can look at the home. They can get feels for the area, especially when you're moving out of state. That's a big thing. Um, our population is heavily military in Colorado Springs, but the way the market has been, regular folks can have the opportunity to actually see what's going on out here, get a feel, like you said, talk to some professionals, and actually get boots on ground. When I think if rates just all of a sudden drop back down to 5, it'd be a buying frenzy all over again.
Yeah.
You don't have that luxury, so that kind of goes back to just a piece of that leverage that you can have. But
Yeah.
I know there's a lot more other tools that you can negotiate, and that's more, how you can help leverage the clients. But I'll let you kind of dive into that more.
Well, I mean, you're correct though. That time factor is a huge deal. You know, when you have time to just kind of leisurely run around to open houses and, check out any type of listing that you want to, that is a huge game changer. You no longer have to just stress about, oh, I saw a house, it's decent. Let me put an offer on it, because I
Yeah,
know that it's going to be gone tomorrow. Now you actually have time to browse and make sure that what you're looking at is right for you or your family, right? So that time factor is a big deal. And then if you look at it from the seller's perspective, yeah, it does put them in a little bit more pressure. Why? Because now their house is sitting on the market a little bit longer, right? So if the house is sitting on the market a little bit longer and somebody starts showing interest, the buyer immediately has just a little bit of an edge, right? Just a little bit of an edge to walk in and say, okay, well, I'm interested in the property, but there are a couple things over here that I didn't really like. My inspection happened and we saw some things on the roof we didn't like. We definitely want you to fix that, right? That's leverage. All those things can start to happen now because the time factor that you spoke of, you know?
right, right. And I think people don't realize, those repairs are negotiable, right? Depending on what it is. Some are going to be mandatory
Right.
depending on the loan program, if it's major deficiency and stuff like that. But, if there's things that aren't necessarily required, you can still have that leverage to get them fixed right now. Because if the house is, like you said, the house has been sitting there a little bit longer, the sellers want to get out, things aren't flying off the shelf in 24 hours. You, as a
Yeah.
buyer, can go in and say, hey, I want this fixed. I'd like to see that fixed. And also gives you the upper hand because you're the agent, you're negotiating this. You could see what the sellers really are trying to do, right? Some people are ready to just get out of town. They'll fix whatever they need to and just call it a day. So this is where it's giving that leverage back to the buyers as well to get repairs fixed
Yeah.
that weren't really getting fixed just a few years ago when the market was, crazy.
Yeah, and that brings us to, one of the topics that we mentioned was the whole inspection thing. Even when the market was really quick and hot, I never recommended my buyers skip the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it did happen quite a bit though, You did see buyers skipping inspections just to try to get themselves a little bit of an edge, just to please the seller. And now that pressure is totally gone from the
Mm-hmm.
buyer, and even when it does get heated again, which it might, if interest rates come down and then, prices go up and everybody is, grabbing up houses right off the shelf again. Even if it does do that, I definitely will not be recommend anyone skip the inspection. There's just too much at stake, you
Right,
know?
right. And I think a lot of people get confused, right? Because the inspection is 100%, not mandatory. It is always optional, but we always highly encourage it because, you know, even if the seller doesn't agree to the repairs, the buyer knows if there's any issues with the house, and it really gives them that peace of mind for. I think our folks at Impro charge, 400 or 500 bucks for a pretty thorough inspection that
Yeah.
includes like the sewer scope and all that. Um,
Yep.
so I really think that it's like I don't understand why people are willing to waive it when you can just get it done and you don't have to submit a request to have the sellers fix any repairs.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those questions where, some people just don't understand how important it is. Some people feel as if, and I've talked to clients that kind of felt this way as well. They felt as if well, we're not too worried about the inspection. We'll just do it afterwards. That way, I just want to move on with the purchase. That way I don't bother the seller too much and I just get in there and get it done. But that's definitely not the way to really think about this. You definitely want to get the inspection done just so, like you said, at the very least, you are now aware of all the issues because you got to remember the seller in most cases is not going to know everything about that home. Even if they've been living there 10, 15 years, when they sell it, when they fill out their seller's property disclosure, they forget things, right? There's things in that property disclosure that are so far back that they're just like, yeah, I don't remember that. And they're allowed to just not put anything there if they really don't remember because that's
Right.
factually accurate. They just don't know, right? And the only way you're going to be able to tell as a buyer what's actually wrong is if someone currently gets in there and goes through a full-on inspection. And now and possibly now, if you bring it up, now the seller knows as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it could just save you so much money. I mean, you've
Yep.
seen it, right? Sewer lines are messed up. There's, something's not connected, electrical issues. There's so many things that could be identified, especially when we're talking about like a first time home buyer who may not have, tens of thousands of dollars saved up for all these major repairs because they had to use their down payment. They had to get their closing costs, right? That's quite a pretty penny depending on what you're doing. So I think, yeah, just going back to it's really the peace of mind for buyers when it comes to that home inspection and realizing like, hey, $500 now could save you thousands of dollars down the road.
Yeah.
And I think when rates do come down, it makes things more competitive. I don't think people should waive these because again, it's just your peace of mind. You're making the biggest purchase of your life, the biggest investment of your life. You might as well make sure that it's worth it and it's not going to cause you more trouble than just skipping it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Do you think we should delve into a little bit on, we talked about it, we touched on it a little bit, but do you think we should delve in a little bit more on just what we think will happen if if rates actually do come down? Like what do you think you'll see if rates actually come down? Get a little bit more detailed on it.
Yeah, I mean, with rates coming down, and I already saw it from kind of ending out the year because right, October, November, we were closing loans at about 7.5 with great credit, and then December came around and we were already at like almost 6% for that same buyer. 60 days later. Now we're seeing things trend upwards a little bit. It's causing this little hesitation right now.
Yeah.
I think if we continue to go back down the way that we were, it's going to push a lot of people in the market because everybody is like, I'm just going to wait for rates to come down. I'm going to wait for rates to come down. And that is the herd mentality. I think once they come down, I know there's a lot of different statistics. I think the most interesting one is for every 1% that interest rates come down, it'll push 5 million buyers back into the market, uh,
Oh,
potentially, right? So that's going to
yeah.
cause even more panic. We already are in technically like a shorting inventory in a lot of, counties across America. It's not just, a here problem. It's kind of all
It's
over the
everywhere.
place. So I think it's going to push demand back. It's going to bring back all those bidding wars. It's going to bring back a lot of competition to where things are just going to be, you're not going to have that freedom to be able to fly and look at a place. You're going to have to be go, 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 submitting offers, going under contract as soon as possible, seeing short closing time frames, 21 days or less. It's going to be very competitive if rates come down that drastically because a lot of people are just thinking, I'll wait to buy when this happens. And that's just what everyone else is thinking.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I would go further and try to get a little bit more detailed and say that probably this will happen if we see mortgage rates hit something with a five handle. I think that's probably when we'll start seeing just massive amounts of people come back and everyone's going to think that all of a sudden they can afford a property. But it is kind of a tricky thing to say that now they can afford it, right? Because if they couldn't afford it at seven, are they really in the position where they can afford it at five? I mean, the mortgage rate is going to kind of trick a lot of people into jumping in. you know,
Right.
because what's going to end up happening is more demand is going to push prices higher. So you're going to get it on either end. Either it's going to be the high mortgage rate or it's going to be the high price.
Right.
So what you afford is a little bit tricky, you know.
And this just goes back to where I think a lot of people get caught up on appreciation, right? Like you're waiting to buy this house. Well, this house isn't worth, let's just go $400,000 anymore, right? It was $400,000 2 years ago. Well, it's appreciated 5% every year. Now it's worth, upwards of like 450, making it harder for you to get to that purchase price, right? With your purchase power. So I think
Yeah.
homes naturally appreciate, right? 3 to 5% every year, depending on your market. And this is the other thing. People are waiting for rates to drop. But just like you said, just because rates come down, it's going to push a lot of people back into the market. And especially if we see bidding wars and over asking, well, now
Yeah.
there is a comparable property in that area that justifies this new higher price, making all the
Yep.
other houses being able to sell at that new higher price because it's going to give that appraiser justification for saying, okay, yep, this is an accurately priced home based on the recent sell, within the radius that they're going to use. And this is the other thing that people aren't realizing, kind of like you're saying, not only with it being appreciation, overbidding is going to push prices even higher. I mean, we saw it in our market specifically, and it's going to bring that purchase power down of buyers that are waiting even more. Just because rates went down, home prices went up. It's a scale that's not always going to meet them.
Yep. 100%. 100%. Yeah, so I think that just about covers everything that we wanted to cover, right? We even went in a little bit more in depth on what we felt would actually happen if rates came down,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I don't think we need to beat that one up too much because if you haven't heard it yet, then you just heard it again. And I think if you're speaking with for all the viewers out there, if you're speaking with real estate professionals that are current in the market, they're probably going to be telling you the exact same thing, right? If you sit around and wait for something to happen, more than likely you're going to get bitten on the back end by either higher prices or your ability to negotiate will decrease because there's just going to be too many people in the market. We definitely have an inventory shortage. It is definitely all over the United States. Here in our market in Colorado Springs, we definitely see it.
mm-hmm.
That's more builders are definitely building. They're kind of having a decent time right now because they're able to try to buy their rates down. But we're seeing that slow just a little bit. But yeah, we definitely have an inventory shortage. So when people feel like they can afford homes again, everyone's going to jump back in.
Exactly. And then that's just going to add fuel to the fire of our shortage because I think last I
Yeah,
checked the stat across America, what we're short like 5 or 6 million homes
yeah.
uh, still, which is insane. So with rates coming down, it's going to just tighten up that supply chain even more. And then that's where we're really going to see, those home prices go up and everything like that. The bidding wars,
Yeah.
the over asking, the multiple offer situations, it's gonna pick up, and we're already seeing a trickle of it now. But I think this is just a brief preview into what the next 12 to 18 months of real estate can be like.
And it's funny to say it, but if you are a buyer, you actually might be better off if the rates don't fall precipitously down. If they don't come way down really fast, you actually might be better off because if you are a serious buyer, you're going to do the things that we talked about in the beginning. You're actually going to prepare for your home purchase, right? And with preparation comes the positives of you being able to negotiate a little bit better. If rates fall off a cliff and they come way down, all that preparation goes out the window, you know?
Yep.
So your advantage right now is happening while rates are a little bit in this higher area. So it actually, I hate to say it, but it actually might do buyers some good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the best time to buy real estate for anybody watching is when you're ready and if you can afford it. Especially if you know you're going to be in the house for a good period of time to where you can refinance it. You're not looking to move anywhere, right? You're trying to maybe settle down somewhere. you really need to look at it from that perspective. I think everyone has looked at real estate as a get rich quick scheme the past 3 years because it's,
Yeah.
a lot of sales pitches have been buy a house and sell it for 100 grand in a few years. That's
Yep.
not the case here, and that's not what we're advocating. But if you are prepared and you can afford the payments now, it will be easier to get in a home now than when you're trying to bid over multiple other offers and really trying to win that house over when things do come down and pushes those buyers back into the market.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a good note to end it on, man. So yeah, all the viewers we really appreciate you. Once again, this was Jerome Hanson from Hanson Realty and Zach Tarbett from Edge Home Finance. And we'll see you on the next one. What are we calling this? We'll name this
We'll name
later.
this later.
All right.